Hello everyone, this is going to be the flashcard portion of my set of videos. Let's go and get started. So, adware. This is used to describe software that the user has acknowledged, can record information about their habits. For example, an online store might record past purchases and display pop advertisements to market new products based on the user's purchase history. APD, Advanced Persistent Threat. An attacker's ability to obtain, maintain, and diversify access to network systems using exploits and malware. Backdoor. A remote administration utility providing means of configuring a computer. Remote admin software may be installed initially, in which case it must be properly secured. These may also be installed by malware, such as means of entering a system. Chief Information Security Officer or Chief Information Officer. Typically the job title of the person with overall responsibility for information assurance and system security. Dumpster diving. A social engineering technique of discovering things about an organization or person based on what's thrown away. Hoaxes. These are fake information displays like false virus or spyware alerts. Users must be trained to identify genuine source information and avoid fake information from email, instant messaging, or website pop-ups. Kill chain. Term used to describe the stages of a cyber attack. Logic bomb. A malicious program or script that is set to run under particular circumstances or in response to a defined event. National Institute of Standards and Technology. An organization that develops computer security standards used by U.S. federal agencies and publishes cybersecurity best practice guides and research. Open source intelligence. Publicly available information and tools for aggregating and searching that information. Phishing. Obtaining user authentication or finance information through fraudulent requests for information. This type of attack is specifically associated with emailing users with a link to a fake site or some other malware that steals information that the user tried to authenticate. However, vishing refers to similar attacks conducted over voice channels, like voice over internet protocol, while spear phishing or whaling refers to attacks specifically directed at managers or senior executives. Pop-up blocker. Prevents windows from automatically appearing on the computer or within the browser. Ransomware. A type of malware that tries to extort money from the victim by blocking access to their computer or encrypting the victim's files. Rootkit. A class of malware, typically a Trojan, which to say the user believes he or she be installing something else that modifies system files, often at the kernel level, to conceal its presence. Script support. Small code packages like ActiveX, Java, or plugins that provide rich content, but it can also be used to exploit browsers or operating system vulnerabilities, or to perform actions that the user may find annoying, such as opening multiple pop-up windows. Shoulder surfing. This is a physical exploit or attack where the goal is to look over the shoulder of an individual as he or she enters password information or PIN information. Social engineering. A hacking technique widely publicized by Kevin Mitnick in his book, The Art of Deception, whereas the hacker gains useful information about the organization by deceiving its users or by exploiting their unsecured work practices. Typical methods include impersonation, domination, and charm. Spyware. Software that records information about the PC and its user. Spyware is used to describe malicious software installed without the user's consent. Aggressive spyware is used to gather passwords or financial information such as credit card details. Tailgating. This is a human-based attack or social engineering technique where the attacker enters a secure area by following a legitimate employee without the employee's knowledge or permission, or by persuading them to hold the door. Trojan horse. A malicious software program hidden within an innocuous-seeming piece of software. Basically, just think the Trojans. This program, usually a Trojan is used to try to compromise the security of a target computer. Basically, just sneaks through what looks like a normal program or something. TTP, or Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures. It's analysis of historical cyber attacks and adversary actions. A virus. A malicious software program that attempts to replicate by infecting the boot sector of the disks or inserting itself in program code, for example in application files or macro-enabled files. A worm. Virus-like software that can reside in memory. It does not require a host file as a virus does, but can infect files like a virus. Fun fact, so actually Google is technically a worm, but just used in a good way. Xmas tree attack. A type of fingerprinting where the scanner probes a server or router with packets that have unusual flags set in the header, such as FIN, push, or URG. For instance, the way a server responds to such packets can reveal information about the server, such as an operating system type and version. ARP poisoning. The process of injecting a false IP MAC lookup into a victim's ARP cache. This can be used to perform a variety of attacks, including denial of service, spoofing, and man-in-the-middle attack. Black hole. A means of mitigating denial of service or intrusion attacks by dropping, discarding traffic. The demilitarized zone. When a private network needs to be protected against intrusion from the internet and still allow certain services to be publicly accessible from the internet, such as the web and email, you can choose to place such servers in the network area. This area is implemented by using either two firewalls, screen subnet, or a single three-legged firewall, one of the three network ports. Extranet. A network or semi-trusted host, typically representing business partners, suppliers, or customers. Host must authenticate to join the extranet. Internet Control Message Protocol operates at layer 3 of the network to support errors about the delivery of TCP or IP packets. Intranet. A network of trusted hosts owned and controlled by the organization. Loop protection. If broadcast traffic continually loops around a network, the number of broadcast packets increase exponentially, crashing the network. Loop protection in switches such as spanning tree protocol and in routers is the time to live, for instance, is designed to prevent this. MAC as in Media Access Control Address. A unique hardware address that is hard-coded into a network can be manufactured by the manufacturer. This is required for directing data frames across a network and allowing the network card to compare destination addresses coded into the data frame and its own unique hardware address. MAC filter. Applying an access control list to a switch or access points so that only clients with approved hardware addresses can connect to it. Man in the middle. An attack where the attacker intercepts communication between two hosts. Network access control. A means of ensuring endpoint security, that is ensuring that all devices connecting to the network conform to a health policy, patch antivirus firewall configuration, and so on. Can work on the basis of pre- or post-admission control. The core components are an agent running on the client, policy enforcers, network connection devices such as switches and access points, and policy decision points. Network address port translation. Maps private host IP addresses onto a single public IP address. Each host is tracked by assigning a random high TCP port for communications. Network address translation. Where hosts on a private network need internet access, it is no longer practical or secure to allocate each host as a unique IP address. Instead, hosts on the private network use private addressing. A router or proxy server provides this translation to map the private address to one or more publicly accessible IP addresses. As well as being easier to configure, this hides the private network addressing scheme from internet users. Network interconnections hardening. The basic steps used to ensure that a network is secure including physical security or infrastructural like cabling, servers, switches, routers, configuring services and protocols by disabling anything that is not required, configuring access control, such as like firewalls or key devices, and setting up a monitoring and maintenance program to detect unauthorized equipment or applications connected to the network and apply critical firmware or patch updates to a network hardware. Network monitoring. Auditing software that collects status and configuration information from network devices. Many products are based on the simple Network Management Protocol, or as SNMP. Network segregation. Enforcing a security zone by segmenting the network from access by the rest of the network. This can be accomplished using firewalls or VPNs or VLANs, a physically separate network or host with no cabling or wireless links to other networks is referred to as air gapping. Port forwarding. When a router takes requests from the internet from a particular application, we'll say HTTP or port 80, and sends them to a designated host on the LAN. Port security. Preventing a device attached to a switch port from communicating on the network unless it matches a given MAC address or other protection profile. You see this in 802.1x all the time, verifying the MAC addresses. Rogue device. An attachment of the network devices and services including access points, DHCP servers, and DNS servers that can allow very affecting spoofing or man-in-the-middle attacks to be launched. Router. This device links to similar networks and can support multiple alternate paths between locations based on the parameters of the speed, traffic loads, and cost. It operates at a layer 3 network of the OSI model. Spoofing. Where the attacker disguises their identity. Some examples include IP spoofing, where the attacker changes their IP address, or phishing, where the attacker sets up a false website. Switch. A network appliance capable of creating temporary virtual circuits between two Ethernet interfaces to reduce connection on the network. Switches have replaced the hubs of most Ethernet networks. Most switches work at a layer 2 data link, but more advanced models work at a layer 3 network, functioning much like a router. TCP/IP hijacking. A type of spoofing attack where the attacker disconnects a host, then replaces it with his her own machine, spoofing the original host IP address. VLAN, or known as virtual LAN. A separate network created by using switching technology, even though hosts on two such separate networks may be physically connected to the same cabling, traffic is restricted to each individual network only. This provides traffic management and protection against packet sniffing. So, for example, like we'll sometimes separate on VLANs, have their own VLAN for VoIP, which is Voice over Internet Protocol, printers, computers, or if you go to like the medical field, we'll have even medical devices as its own separate VLAN. Botnet. A network of computers that have been compromised by Trojan, rootkit, or malware. Providing this network of compromised computers can also subvert any firewalls between the controller or the herder and the compromised computers, also like zombies. They can be remotely controlled and monitored using covert channels. DOS also is denial of service. A network attack that aims to disrupt a service, usually by overloading it. Distributed denial of service, basically DDoS attack. Think of it like a giant denial of service attack. Attack that uses multiple compromised computers, a botnet, or zombies to launch the attack. Firewall. Hardware or software that filters traffic passing into or out of the network, for example, between the private network and the internet. This basic packet filter works at layers 3 and 4, network and transport, of the OSI model. More advanced filters, proxy, and stateful inspection can examine higher layer information to provide enhanced security. FloodGuard. A firewall or IPS that prevents denial of service attacks, where multiple compromised bots attempt to deny network connectivity by flooding it with malicious packets. Another type of the firewall IPS might be deployed to protect against broadcast loops in layer 2, which is the MAC level, and layer 3 as IP segments.